The Norwegian government has announced plans to reinforce a requirement to build bomb shelters in new buildings, a practice it stopped in 1998. Politico reports. The decision comes as Moscow's full-scale war against Ukraine approaches its third anniversary, and Russia, which shares a border with Norway in the Arctic Circle, shows no sign of backing down on its aggressive stance. There is more uncertainty around us. We must take care of the civilian population in the event of a worst-case scenario with war or armed attacks. Norway's Minister of Justice and Public Security, Emilie Mehl, told public broadcaster NRK. In that case, shelter is one of the protective measures we need. She added, until 1998, every large residential complex in Norway was required to have a bomb shelter, but no new shelters have been built since then. Mehl noted that the requirement would apply to complexes larger than 1,000 square meters. The government is proposing two types of shelters: new ones that would protect against chemical and radioactive weapons, and some to protect against conventional weapons that could be repurposed from subway stations or parking garages. The measure is part of an overall preparedness report that contains more than 100 different recommendations aimed at strengthening and preparing Norway for a possible war, as well as in the event of extreme weather conditions or events such as a pandemic. Russia's willingness to use military force to achieve political goals indicates that Norway will likely have to deal with an unpredictable and risk-taking neighbor for a long time to come, the government report said. As media reported last month, Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov said that Norway would finance Ukrainian production of weapons and equipment. According to him, during a visit to Oslo, he managed to agree with Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre and Defense Minister Bjørn Arild Gram that Norway would join the Danish format of support, direct financing of production in Ukraine. Norway said in the summer it would donate 6 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. As Ukraine receives more trained pilots and support personnel, the fighter coalition will add more aircraft to Ukraine, according to Norwegian Defense Minister Bjørn Arild Gram. The country is already strengthening Ukraine's air defense system with NASAMS systems.
Demonstrators started gathering early Saturday morning in Riese in the German state of Saxony to protest against the far-right alternative for Germany's federal conference in the city. Banging drums and wearing bright-colored clothes, the protesters blocked streets to stop people attending the Congress. Formed in 2013, the AfD has moved steadily to the right. Its platform initially centered on opposition to bailouts for struggling Eurozone members, but its vehement opposition to then-Chancellor Angela Merkel's decision to allow in large numbers of refugees and other migrants in 2015 established the party as a significant political force. More recently, AfD has seen its support grow as a result of discontent with center-left Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-party coalition government. It hopes to emerge as the biggest party in 3 state elections in the formerly communist East, where it has its strongest support, in September. When planned electrical outages are imposed on his village in southern Moldova, 73-year-old retiree Vasily Donisai passes the time by solving crosswords and puzzles in a room he illuminates using a small gas lamp. He said he's stockpiled firewood to ensure he can use his wood-burning stove in the room he shares with his wife to stay warm. The village of Kapenka is situated just several kilometers across the de facto border from Moldova's separatist pro-Russian Transnistria region, where hundreds of thousands of people have been left without heating and hot water after Russia halted gas supplies to the region on January 1, over an alleged $709 million debt for past supplies. The decision by Russia's state-owned energy giant Gazprom came into action a day after a gas transit agreement between Russia and Ukraine expired, and stopped gas flowing to Transnistria's gas-operated Kherson power plant, the country's largest, which generated electricity that powered a significant portion of Moldova. Citing findings by British and Norwegian audit firms, Moldova's pro-Western government claims its debt stands close to $8.6 million, and has accused Moscow of weaponizing energy to destabilize the European Union candidate country. Russia has denied it is meddling in Moldova. Like more than a dozen other towns or villages administered by Moldovan authorities in the capital Chisinau but situated near Transnistria, Kapenka remains interconnected to the separatist region's Soviet-era energy infrastructure, leaving them vulnerable amid the energy crisis. The planned electrical outages are scheduled to last for about 4 hours at a time. Moldova has repeatedly claimed Russia is conducting a vast, hybrid war by meddling in elections, funding anti-government protests, and running vast disinformation campaigns to try to topple the government and derail the country's EU aspirations. Last month, Transnistria, which broke away after a short war in 1992 and is not recognized by most countries, declared a state of emergency, fearing the region would not receive gas. A large majority of Transnistria's roughly 350,000 people speak Russian as their first language, and some 200,000 are Russian citizens. Russia also bases about 1,500 troops in a so-called frozen conflict zone. The looming crisis also prompted Chisinau last week to implement a series of energy-saving measures beginning January 1, which include reducing lighting in public and commercial buildings by at least 30%, and energy-intensive businesses operating during off-peak hours. Last month, Moldova's parliament also voted in favor of imposing a state of emergency in the energy sector, as the crisis threatened to leave the former Soviet Republic without sufficient energy this winter, and fears that the situation could trigger a humanitarian crisis in Transnistria, where temperatures in winter often drop to sub-0 degrees Celsius.